Are you having trouble with feedback? Writing it? Getting it? If so, watch this video because I have a ton of advice for you. But before I do that, hello, my name is Yvonne from Hey Miss K. My channel is all about getting back to the basics of good online ESL teaching, as well as helping new interested teachers through the hiring process. So today's video is about feedback. Now, feedback can be a stressful thing because either you need it for your raise, or maybe you really want it because you need to know if you're doing a good job teaching, or it just warms your heart when you get nice feedback. Whatever reasons you have, I'm going to teach you how to give good feedback and how to get good feedback. Now, I've been teaching with my online ESL company for over 3 years now, and I've always gotten a good feedback rate. That means that most of my classes, many of my classes that I teach also give me feedback, good feedback. So I usually hover between 40 to 60% in feedback rate. That means 40 to 60% of the classes that I teach give me feedback. Now, for your company, you might have a percentage that you need to keep, or you might have a percentage that you need to get to in order to get a raise. Like for VIPKid, we need 25%. So I want to share my strategies to get your feedback rate up. You can also check out my video on teaching ESL online. I'm going to link it here or here. I'm never sure. And please subscribe to my channel. Now, the first thing that I want you to do is to treat it like a business. You are your own business. You want your ratings to go up. You want other parents to see your profile and think, wow, I want this teacher. So if you have that in mind when you're writing your feedback, you are going to do much better. Okay, let's start right away. So number one, if you want good feedback, I think the number one thing that you need to do is teach well. Come prepared and give it your all. So if you are teaching with everything that you have for every single class, that will bring you good feedback. I treat every class like it's my only class. I smile a lot because when we don't, it really looks like we're not that interested. And you just need to imagine being on the other end. If you're a student or a child and it looks like your teacher is just dreading coming to class because they're tired or because they've been up all night and yes, tired, or maybe they're just not in the best of mood, it's really hard to enjoy that class with them because you're like, oh wow, they really don't want to be here with me, right? So make sure that you are engaged, that you're smiling, make sure that you're well prepared, because if you deliver a great lesson, you're going to get good feedback. Another little tip that goes in with teaching well is also making sure that you make a connection with your students. Make sure that you're asking questions about them, getting them to giggle or laugh every now and then. It doesn't have to be the whole lesson. You do have to get through the content, but make sure that you're engaged, that you're having fun with them, and that they want to see you again. Now, the second thing that you really need to do is leave good feedback. If you want good feedback, you better give good feedback. And I'm going to teach you how to give good feedback. There are 2 don'ts. The number one don't summarize. I see this too often. People summarize the lesson. You do not need to summarize the lesson. That is not feedback, that is a summary. Feedback is when you're actually letting the parents know what the child did well and what the child needs to work on. Now, if you're just going to summarize what you did, like, oh, Dora learned these words, and Dora read this story, and Dora practiced these phonics words, that's not telling me anything as a parent. I'm just seeing, whoa, okay, so the teachers told me exactly what I already know. The second don't is to not go into detail. Now, if you're going to talk about the words that the student learned, you do not need to list every single word. If Dora learned giraffe, zebra, lion, and elephant, you don't need to list that all in your feedback. You don't need to say, Dora learned the words giraffe, zebra, lion. It gets way too long if you're going to go into detail when in every part of your feedback, in the phonics, in the in the reading, the writing, the vocabulary. It's just too much and too long, and parents don't want to see a 2-paragraph feedback. They want something that is short, concise, and to the point. You can just make it general and say, Dora did a wonderful job learning the new vocabulary words. So you're letting the parents know that she did that well. She knows her vocabulary words, but you don't need to list every single one of them. Now what you can do is when Dora needs to work on something. So you would say, Dora learned the vocabulary words today, and she can continue to practice the pronunciation of giraffe. That you will mention, because that is a word that she needs to continue to practice. My third tip is to use the sandwich method. Now the sandwich method is when you write something positive, you put the negative, not that I want it to be negative, but the things that they need to work on in the middle, and then you finish with a positive again. So you have a nice sandwich. And that's just a nice way to get feedback, because you start out with something that is nice and happy. So you might say, oh, Dora did a wonderful job reading today. You know, she worked so hard. Whatever it is, you write something nice. And then you go into your feedback where you're talking about she needs to continue to work on this. She needed a little bit of help with that. And that's okay. You let them know what she needed help with. And then at the end, you finish it with a nice positive sentence saying, you know, I was so happy to see Dora repeat so well today. And you finish with something nice that the parent can say, ah, okay, that was nice to read. Now, when you are giving them advice on what the child needs to work on, you also want to tell them how or why. So if you're going to say, Dora should work on this sentence, on answering this sentence, tell them why. Because she keeps forgetting certain words in the sentence. So that they know, okay, that's why she needs to work on it, not because of her pronunciation, but because she keeps forgetting to say all of the words in that sentence, okay? And sometimes you might think, but I don't know what advice to give. Just think of general things that they can do at home that are very simple. Now, after writing something nice at the end, you're also going to thank the parents. You're going to thank them for booking you. You're going to thank Dora for being your student, for taking your class. Because when you let them know that you are happy that they booked you, they are most likely going to want to book you again because they see that you are appreciative. And now I'm going to give you 2 more tips that you can use. I don't always use these, but sometimes I do. Now, the first tip is to ask a question in your feedback about the student. So when you're asking a question, you're hoping that they're going to respond by leaving you feedback. So if you say, what is Dora's favorite color? Or what does Dora really like? I want to give her a reward that she likes next class. You're hoping that the parent sees it and then will respond by sending you a feedback, giving you a great rating, 5 stars or 5 apples or whatever your company uses, and answer that question. So that's a little tip to get some feedback. Tip number 2 is to let them know what you're going to be working on next class. So if Dora had a hard time pronouncing that word giraffe, you can write that in your feedback and say, next class, we're going to continue working on the pronunciation of giraffe. I'm going to have her practice more soft G words if that's the issue. So you want to let them know, hey, I know how to help your child. Book me again. So that is another little tip that you can do when you're leaving feedback that will help you get more bookings from those parents, and they might think, oh yes, this teacher already knows my child. They know how to help her. I'm gonna book this teacher again. Okay, so now you have written your feedback, you have posted it, you have left it, and it's out there. Now you're going to hope to get some feedback. And when you do, I think it is super important that you respond to that feedback if you can. With my company, with VIPKid, you can respond to feedback that parents leave you. Now, some parents are just going to send you those 5 apples. You're just going to get 5 apples, no comments, nothing. That's okay. You can still respond and you can thank them. Please take the time to thank them for giving you 5 apples. If there's a comment with that, usually it's something really nice. So again, I think it's super important to thank them for taking the time out of their busy day to sit down and leave you those 5 apples and leave you feedback. I think it's very important. Now, I have heard some teachers say, no, I don't have time for that, or I don't want parents to think that I'm going to thank them for every single feedback that they give me, but why not? I thank every single one of my parents for leaving me feedback. If a parent leaves me 4 or 5 or more, whatever it is, feedbacks in a row on the same day, I'm not going to respond to every one of them. But I will say, in the last one that they give me, thank you so much for giving me all of those 5 apples or all of that feedback. I really appreciate it. I will let them know that I see them all and that I really am grateful, because again, if I was on the other end and I'm sending this feedback, I would feel very great and very happy if the teacher responded and said, you know what? I know you're busy. I know you have a lot on your plate, and so thank you so much for taking the time to think of me and to send me those positive messages or tags or whatever it is. This is also another place where you can ask a question in hopes that they will continue to give you feedback to answer those questions. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to talk about is asking for 5 apples, is asking for feedback. I am not an expert on this because I'm not very good at it. I usually never ask for feedback. It's very rare that I do. I did at one point in time, I believe it was in the month of October, November last year, where all of a sudden my rating just like went down and I wasn't getting feedback from anyone anymore. I understand why now. I had regulars that stopped taking so many classes with me because they were back at school or they had their own stuff to do, so they were only taking maybe 1 class a week instead of 3 or 4, and they always left me feedback. And they were replaced with students that weren't leaving me feedback. So I was like, oh my gosh, I am back at my normal 40% now, so whew. But anyways, I'll just say that I asked for feedback during that time and it honestly didn't really work. I think I got, I don't know, maybe 10% of every single time I asked for feedback. The parents just didn't send it to me. So I'm not an expert on it, but you can ask for feedback. But I will say, I think it's very important the way that you word it, because I think you should word it in a way that they can only leave you positive feedback, or that you're asking for positive feedback. If you're just saying, please send me feedback, I would really appreciate it. Or I've heard teachers say, you know, please send me feedback and let me know what you liked about my teaching, or I want to improve as a teacher, let me know what you thought. This opens it up to them leaving you less than 5, because they might say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to give her or him 4 apples and let them know that next time I really want her to work on having my child repeat. So now you've kind of said, hey, you know, like just give me any kind of feedback, and that's not what you want. So if you're going to ask for it, ask for 5 apples. Ask for, I would really appreciate 5 apples, or I would really appreciate some positive feedback if you've enjoyed my classes. It is really important to me, as well as VIPKid or whatever company you work for. So just make sure that you're wording it in a way that you're asking for good feedback. I also want you to remember that even if you do get 1 poor rating every now and then, it's not going to be the end of the world. I know it will feel like the end of the world, but it's not. And especially if it's 4 out of 5. I remember comparing this with someone to hotels. Are you not going to go to a 4-star hotel because it has 4 stars? No, you're still gonna go there because it's still a good hotel. Parents are still gonna book you even if you dropped a tiny bit in your rating. My ratings really did drop a lot at one, no, that's not true. Not a lot, but they dropped because I kept getting 4 apples from the same parents. And I'm going to tell you, because it's actually quite a funny story, but I'm going to leave it for the end of this video. So if you want to stick around and hear my funny story of how I figured out why I was getting 4 apples and from who, it's quite funny. Now, I hope this video helped you. I also encourage you to go check out Teacher Christina's video on feedback. I really like her system as well. I will link it in the description box. Check it out. It's super helpful and simple to remember. It's similar to mine, but she obviously does it a little bit different. And if this video has helped you, please click like, please click subscribe and that bell notification so that every time I upload a video, you're going to be notified right away. If you don't hit that bell, then I might upload videos, or I will upload videos, and you might not see them. And I do upload once a week, so like I said, I talk about ESL strategies and how to get through the hiring process. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna now finish off with my story, but if you need to go, until next time. This is my funny story. I love sharing this story. So I kept getting 4 apples from the same parent, and I asked in the feedback, I said, what can I do to better myself as a teacher? How can I help this student, your child? And they would never leave me any explanation. I just kept getting 4 apples again, 4 apples again, 4 apples again. And I was teaching this kid, and every time I got 4 apples, and I got 4 apples, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And the learning partners couldn't help me, VIPKid couldn't help me, and I was just like, what is going on? Like, clearly you don't like me, choose another teacher. So then finally, there was this one time I was teaching my student, and then I say goodbye, we log off, and right away, like within seconds, I get 4 apples for the previous class. And that's when I realized, I was like, wait a minute, there's no way a parent came in that quickly and left me 4 apples. It's like, it's my student. My student is leaving me 4 apples. He probably signed out right away, and I don't know if they get pop-ups or whatever it is, but he rated me for that previous lesson, that previous class, and he gave me 4 apples. So this is what I figured. So the next lesson, I said, oh, hello, how are you? I'm going to leave his name out. And then at the end of class, I said, oh, you get 5 stars, good job. How many apples for teacher? And he says, 4. I was like, he was only a level 2 student too, and like the sweetest kid. I was like, no, not 4, 5 for teacher. And then he was like, okay. And that was it. From then on, he always gave me 5. So I don't know why he was giving me 4. I have no clue still today, because he was just, you know, like I said, level 2 low learner, didn't have a lot of vocabulary to explain anything to me. But thank goodness I figured out that it was him, because from then on I got only 5 apples and a bunch of beautiful messages from him as he was learning English. And it all turned out fine. But yes, my sweet student was the one that gave me 4 apples in a row. I still love him though. All right, thanks for sticking around. I hope you had a good laugh. Until next time.